For 10 years, I have lived in the shadows of my own betrayal, haunted by the single moment of weakness that shattered everything. The weight of my guilt presses against my chest every morning, and every night I drown in memories that refuse to fade. My name is Aina, and this is the story of the affair that has haunted me for a decade. It all started on an ordinary evening in my sister Bimpe's home. She had always been the perfect one, beautiful, kind, and with a marriage that seemed flawless. She and her husband, Chukwuma, had been together for 6 years, a couple that others admired. I had convinced myself that I was happy for her, that I was content with my life as the younger sister who had yet to find her own path in love. But beneath that surface, envy simmered. That night, Bimpe had called me over to help with dinner while she ran a last-minute errand. Chukwuma was in the living room, sipping his usual glass of whiskey, exhaustion lining his features. "You don't have to do all this," he said, leaning against the kitchen counter as I chopped vegetables. "Bimpe's lucky to have you." I smiled, but my heart twisted. "She's the lucky one," I muttered under my breath. "What?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. I shook my head. "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing, it was everything. It was the way he looked at me that night, not as Bimpe's sister, but as a woman. It was the way my pulse raced when his fingers brushed against mine as he reached for a knife. It was the moment that changed everything, when he whispered, "You're beautiful, Aina." I should have walked away. I should have laughed it off, pretended it meant nothing. But I didn't. The loneliness I had been battling, the quiet resentment I had buried, all erupted like a storm. And before I knew it, I was lost in the touch of the man who belonged to my sister. It lasted only one night, one reckless, disastrous night that I have spent 10 years regretting. Afterward, we both pretended it never happened. Chukwuma avoided me, and I avoided Bimpe, making up excuses to distance myself. But the guilt festered like an open wound, and no matter how hard I tried to escape it, the memories clawed their way back. Years passed, and I told myself I had moved on. I built a life of my own, even got engaged to Ibuka, a wonderful man who loved me deeply. But just when I thought I had left the past behind, the past came knocking. A message arrived on my phone one evening, one that sent a chill down my spine. "I know what you did." My hands trembled as I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my ears. The sender was anonymous, but the message was clear. Someone knew my secret, and they weren't going to let me forget it. As I stood frozen, a new wave of fear washed over me. 10 years of silence, and now someone was dragging me back into the nightmare. Who was it? And what did they want? Aina's hands trembled as she scrolled through her phone, rereading the message from Bimpe for the 10th time. "I need to talk to you. Urgent." The weight of those words pressed down on her chest like a stone. It had been years since her sister had asked to meet her like this, without warning, without a clear reason. Aina had spent the last decade walking on eggshells around Bimpe, carefully maintaining the facade of normalcy. It wasn't that they didn't talk. They did, at family gatherings, on birthdays, during holiday calls. But their conversations had become shallow, stripped of the warmth they once shared. Aina had convinced herself that she had buried the past deep enough that it would never resurface. But now the ghosts were knocking again. She took a deep breath and typed a response. "Where should we meet?" Bimpe's reply was immediate. "The cafe near Mom's house, 1 hour." Aina's stomach churned. The cafe held too many memories, too many afternoons of laughter over cups of tea. back when things were simple, back when she wasn't haunted by the biggest mistake of her life. When she arrived, Bimpe was already seated at their usual corner table. Aina hesitated before walking in, taking a moment to observe her sister. Bimpe looked tired, her face slightly gaunt, her eyes distant. The years had changed both of them. Summoning her courage, Aina stepped forward. "Hey!" Bimpe looked up, her gaze sharp and unreadable. "You're here." Aina sat down, forcing a small smile. "Of course, you said it was urgent." For a long moment, Bimpe didn't speak. She simply stirred her tea, the clinking of the spoon filling the silence between them. Then, without looking up, she said, "Chukwuma and I are getting a divorce." Aina's breath caught in her throat. "What?" Bimpe's lips pressed into a thin line. "He's been distant for years. I thought we were just going through a phase, but it never ended. And now I know why." Aina's hands clenched under the table. "Why?" she asked, though she was terrified of the answer. Bimpe finally met her eyes. "He's in love with someone else." Aina's heart pounded so hard she was sure her sister could hear it. She forced herself to stay still, to act surprised. I don't understand. Who is she?" Bimpe let out a hollow laugh. "That's the funny part. He won't tell me. But I have my suspicions." Aina swallowed hard. "Suspicions?" Bimpe leaned forward, her voice lowering. "It started about 10 years ago. He changed. He became more secretive, more detached. At first, I thought it was work stress, but then I realized it was guilt." Aina felt a chill crawl up her spine. Bimpe's fingers tightened around her cup. "I know he cheated on me, Aina. I just don't know with who." Aina's world tilted. The walls of the cafe seemed to close in on her. She wanted to speak, to deny, to reassure her sister. But the words wouldn't come. Because she knew she was the woman her sister's husband had betrayed her with. And now the truth was dangerously close to coming out. Aina thought she was prepared for anything, but nothing could have braced her for the sudden reappearance of Chukwuma in her life. It had been years since their last encounter, years she had spent trying to erase the guilt, to silence the whispers of regret in her mind. But now, as she stared at the man she once betrayed her sister for, all those emotions came rushing back like an unrelenting tide. She was at a supermarket when it happened. She had just turned the corner into an aisle when she saw him standing there, scanning the shelves with a look of concentration. He had aged, but in a way that made him even more striking. There was a maturity in his eyes, a presence that made her heart slam against her chest. For a moment, Aina thought she could escape unnoticed, but then their eyes met. Chukwuma froze. There was no mistaking the shock in his expression, the way his body stiffened. For a split second, she saw something else in his eyes, something she couldn't quite place. Was it regret? Pain? Or was it something even more dangerous? "Aina?" He finally spoke, his voice hesitant, as if he himself wasn't sure he should be saying her name. Her breath hitched. It had been so long since she had heard him say her name, and yet it still sent a shiver down her spine. "Chukwuma," she managed, barely above a whisper. The awkward silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken words and memories neither of them wanted to acknowledge. Then Chukwuma cleared his throat and looked away. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did I," she said quickly, gripping her shopping basket tighter. "I should go." But before she could walk past him, he reached out and gently grabbed her wrist. The touch was light, but he sent a jolt through her entire body. "Wait, please." She swallowed hard, She should refuse. She should turn and walk away. But something in his voice made her pause. Against her better judgment, she nodded. They walked outside, finding a secluded spot near the parking lot. The air between them was thick with tension, years of buried emotions clawing their way to the surface. "How have you been?" he asked, studying her face. Aina let out a bitter chuckle. "That's a loaded question." "I suppose it is," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. I never got the chance to say this properly, but I'm sorry for everything." Her eyes widened in surprise. "You're sorry, Chukwuma? I was the one who betrayed my own sister. If anything, I should be the one apologizing." He shook his head. "It wasn't just you. I was weak. I should have never let things go that far. And I should have fought harder to protect you from the aftermath." Aina looked away. The guilt she had been carrying for 10 years suddenly felt unbearable. "Does Bimpe know you're back?" Chukwuma hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, she does. We're trying to figure things out, but it's complicated." Anna's stomach twisted. Complicated? He sighed. "She hasn't forgiven me. I don't think she ever will. But we have a son together, and she wants him to have a relationship with me." Aina's breath caught in her throat. A son? Of course, it made sense. A reminder of the life they had built, the life she had shattered. "I should go," she said quickly, turning away before he could see the emotions battling inside her. "Aina, wait. No, Chukwuma, this conversation. It's dangerous. We both know it. Goodbye." She didn't wait for his response. She walked away, her heart pounding, knowing that this encounter had changed everything. Again, Aina paced her living room, her heart pounding against her ribcage. It had been a week since her confrontation with Bimpe, and she hadn't heard a word from her sister. The silence was heavier than any screaming match they could have had. She wanted to believe that Bimpe was processing everything, that there was still a chance for forgiveness, but deep down, she feared she had lost her sister forever. The sound of her phone vibrating on the table jolted her out of her thoughts. She rushed to grab it, her breath hitching when she saw Chukwuma's name flashing on the screen. She hesitated before answering. "Hello? Aina, we need to talk," he said, his voice low and urgent. She swallowed hard. "About what?" "Bimpe left. She packed up and took the kids. I don't know where she went and she won't answer my calls." Aina closed her eyes, guilt washing over her like a tidal wave. "I'm so sorry, Chukwuma. Don't!" he cut in sharply. "I just need to know if she spoke to you. Did she say anything about leaving?" "No," Aina admitted. "I haven't heard from her since that night." Chukwuma sighed heavily. "I messed everything up." Aina felt a lump form in her throat. "We both did." There was silence between them, a suffocating kind that made her chest tighten. Aina knew this wasn't just about Bimpe anymore. It was about the years of deception, the guilt that had festered inside them both, and the damage they could never undo. "I need to find her," Chukwuma finally said. "If she never forgives me, fine, but I can't let my children think I abandoned them." Aina nodded, though he couldn't see her. "I understand. If I hear anything, I'll let you know." After ending the call, Aina sat on the couch, gripping the armrest so tightly, her knuckles turned white. The weight of her past mistakes threatened to crush her. She had thought she could handle the guilt, that she could live with it. But now, seeing how deeply she had hurt the people she loved, she wasn't so sure. A sudden knock on the door startled her. She jumped up, her heart racing as she made her way to the entrance. When she opened it, she gasped. Bimpe stood there, her eyes red and puffy, her arms crossed over her chest. "We need to talk." Aina swallowed hard and stepped aside, letting her sister walk in. She closed the door behind her, turning to face the woman she had betrayed. "I hate you for what you did," Bimpe said, her voice shaking with anger. "I hate that I trusted you, that I loved you, that I never saw this coming." Tears welled up in Aina's eyes. "I know I hate myself too." Bimpe let out a humorless laugh. "That's not enough. Do you understand that? No amount of guilt you feel will fix this. You ruined my marriage, my family. How do you live with yourself?" Aina wiped her tears, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't." For the first time since their confrontation, Bimpe's anger wavered. She looked away, taking a deep breath. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, but I needed to see you, to tell you this face to face." Aina nodded, her chest tightening. "I understand." Bimpe took a step back, as if putting distance between them was the only way she could keep herself from breaking. "I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk again, but for now, just stay away." Aina opened her mouth to respond, but Bimpe was already walking out the door. The moment it closed behind her, Aina sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. She had finally faced her demons, but the haunting wasn't over yet. Aina stood before the mirror, her reflection a haunting reminder of the choices she had made. The past 10 years had taken their toll. Guilt had aged her in ways no one could see, but she felt every crack within her soul. Bimpe's voice echoed in her mind. What kind of sister betrays her own blood? The words had been spoken in anger, but they clung to her heart like a scar. She had tried to bury herself in work, in charity, in anything that would drown the whispers of her past. But every quiet moment reminded her of Chukwuma, of the nights filled with stolen touches, of the lies they had built upon each other. She had thought she could move on. That time would erase what she had done. But no matter how far she tried to run, the past had always been one step behind, whispering, reminding, haunting her. Tonight, she would finally face it. Bimpe had invited her over for dinner. It had been years since they sat at the same table, years since they had spoken without sharp words slicing between them. Aina wasn't sure if this was an olive branch or an execution. She arrived at Bimpe's home, her hands trembling as she knocked on the door. When it opened, Bimpe stood there, her face unreadable. Was there still hatred, resentment, or had time softened her anger? Chukwuma stood behind her, his expression guarded, his eyes avoiding hers. It had been years since they last exchanged words, yet the silence between them held more weight than any conversation ever could. The dinner table was set, but the atmosphere was thick with unspoken emotions, every fork scraping against a plate, every sip of water. It all felt amplified in the silence. Even Ibuka, usually talkative, was reserved, his eyes darting between them with curiosity and discomfort. Finally, Bimpe cleared her throat, setting her cutlery down with purpose. "Aina," she began, her voice calm but firm. "I invited you here because I'm tired of carrying this hatred. I need to let go." Aina's heart pounded. "Bimpe, no!" Bimpe cut her off. "Let me finish." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I don't know if I will ever fully forgive you. What you did, what you and Chukwuma did, shattered me. I spent years wondering what I did wrong. Why my own sister? Why my own husband would betray me like that? It changed me. It made me question everything." Aina dropped her gaze, shame burning her throat. She had never heard Bimpe speak so openly about the pain she had caused? But Bimpe continued, holding on to this anger is poisoning me. It's exhausting. I've lost so much time being bitter, time I'll never get back, and I refuse to waste any more of it. She looked Aina directly in the eyes. I don't know if I can ever trust you again, but I do know that I don't want to keep hating you. Tears welled up in Aina's eyes. I don't deserve your forgiveness, she whispered. Bimpe exhaled. Maybe not. But forgiveness isn't about what you deserve. It's about what I need to heal. Aina nodded, unable to speak as emotions clogged her throat. She turned to Chukwuma, searching his face for something. An apology? Acknowledgement? But he kept his eyes on his plate, silent, distant. She realized then that she would never get closure from him. And maybe she didn't need it. As she left that night, she felt a weight lift from her chest. It wasn't full redemption, but it was a start. Maybe one day she could forgive herself too. Thanks for watching this video. If you find this story useful, kindly show us some love by clicking on the subscribe button to subscribe to this channel. Like the video and share. See you soon.